In this assistant we will voice our unquestionably own and showcases perspective on BTT future while examining Bittorent quote for 2021 and a while later, a couple of in a generally colossal way. If it's not exorbitantly a tough spot overall review, that you ought to unequivocally contemplate this and one more supposition while contemplating sort of various components, since foreseeing anything kind of is an unpalatable undertaking. Not to generally determine foreseeing the predetermination of a clever fundamentally precarious cash-related resource like BTT in an extremely critical way at this point, we should head into it before we bounce huge into the Bittorent regard presumption and answer requests, if Bittorent in each common sense is a sagacious experience or not, for what reason will BTT essentially succeed, or inside and out, that truly matters come up short, or for what reason will BTT regard rise or drop we should rapidly essentially toss a look at what particularly is Bittorent and its to-date history. It's been some time since we genuinely saw a token in each functional sense have the market in a manner BTT did. The openness made by Justin Sun, Bittorent and Binance, putting their names behind the undertaking, a kind of last, particularly incited the thing's whole ICO selling out in only 15 minutes, getting 72 million in the meantime. BTT token kind of is imagined, and at this point right currently seen as sensibly you're on a very basic level regular TRC10 token. A Tron-based standard which positively permits Bittorent clients to give their associations as a compromise for kind of communicated tokens in a critical way. This truly standard is lower than the TRC20, which has fundamental sharp comprehension abilities, which in each pragmatic sense is exceptionally tremendous. The generally token surely has a genuinely complete stockpile of 990 billion units which will be undeniable into essentially more unassuming increments for definitely extra liquidity, yet one considers the total more unmistakable liquidity you generally need when you essentially have particularly very nearly a trillion tokens, which fundamentally is extremely gigantic. BTT's kind of boss arrangement is to help Bittorent show clients to from a genuine perspective, give foundation associations like record creating and working with as a split, the difference for the tokener BTT particularly token cost expectation for 2021 BTT is one of the endeavors that kind of has pretty high speculative worth importance. It rapidly combines openness and expressly stands separated of unsophisticated fledglings into crypto space, thus BTT and kind of relative tokens honestly generally well in vehemently moving business areas in an overall tremendous way, regardless when the bear market follows such undertakings are first to generally see ordinarily capital trip into really more for the most part secure and absolutely more conspicuous activities and stablecoins instead of pervasive reasoning. This unquestionably leaves first year initiates with significant lots of vain tokens and amazingly heavier sacks of hopium that gets mixed by the undertaking supervisors and their representatives, fooling them into purchasing the jump and unloading basically more tokens on them in a critical way. BTT likewise generally had sprinkles of confusing expense activity, where it fundamentally beat Bitcoin and genuinely was among really top gainers in the really and thusly tolerating for the time being that you're here to kind of brag and focus on it for the most part, maintain a reasonable level of control. The cost generally takeoff is probably only one sort of more siphon and unequivocally dump, which will make boatloads of cash to the all things considered truly rich whales, and positively leave you in the development with a lot of coins that kind of are even less worth than an advanced Bittorent coin. BTT future standpoint. Btt Bullrun, individual advertiser of Ethereum, said there fundamentally are several particularly smart contemplations. There are an extremely remarkable truly game plan of exceptionally unworkable thoughts, and there particularly are a ton of unfathomably irrational considerations, and many tricks excessively likewise. Surely more than 95 of useful ICOs and mechanized cash tries will unequivocally come up short and their financial support will by and large lose cash, generally contrary to standard reasoning. The basically other 5 of attempts will all things considered change into the new Apple, Google or Alibaba in the crypto industry, which is exceptionally basic. Will BTT generally be among those 5 or so they thought phenomenally flighty, which from a genuine perspective is truly enormous. BTT genuinely token makers accept that the obligation of cash-related prizes will particularly make regularly more individuals seed the storms they download, or so they from a genuine perspective idea the truly entire undertaking suggestion for BTT kind of is unconvincing, which is extremely tremendous by a wide margin. Most who download storms truly do as unquestionably such through uninhibitedly open crowds in an extremely critical way. These individuals basically don't need to particularly habitually consider their exchange in low degrees, and hence don't truly have a power to seed more or so they unquestionably thought also Tron's blockchain just won't generally have. The decision to in each useful sense deal with the degrees of throughput that essentially go with a client base, that Bittorrent has around 100 million clients. Similarly, the torrenting scene, the one pretty area, ought to generally be mumbling about this dose and have every one of the reserves of being all around that truly matters amped up for BTT in any capacity whatsoever in each functional sense. Huge way torrenting get-togethers kind of make barely any notice of the undertaking, and most experienced individuals from these associations will really permit you truly to understand that they love the Bittorrent show, yet scorn the relationship behind it, taking into account an establishment put aside by diluted and basically destructive way to deal with acting. The premium generally surely is obviously coming from the cryptographic money world, which proposes that there are different stray pieces for BTT to lay on by a long shot. Most who are pushing this extremely token are anxiously associated with the cryptographic money scene, and particularly are considered as forces to be reckoned with more than whatever else. Incredibly, despite predominant reasoning that being said, we need to ponder the responsibility of Justin Sun and Changping Zhao of Binance reputation in this really whole endeavor.